The number one mistake people make when installing stud conversion kits on their BMWs happens before the studs even go on the car. So we're gonna address that exact issue and show you how you can spice up your lug nuts that look like this and turn them into this. What's up everybody, my name is Fritz and welcome to the channel. When it comes to stud conversion kits, we're faced with two options, steel or titanium, and both have their pros and cons. Titanium comes in at a lesser weight, which is really good for those of you who want to save the most amount of weight as possible, especially when it comes to rotational mass. Steel is going to give you the utmost convenience, not with only taking the wheels off and putting them back on the car, but you can still use your impact tools. Titanium nuts, unless specified otherwise by the manufacturer, should be used with hand tools only. And huge shout out to MRG Raceco for sending out their titanium wheel stud conversion kit for us to install and review on the M235i. They're even giving all of you a discount if you use code VROOMTUBER, which just so happens to be the best way to reach out to me on other social platforms. So let's get these wheel studs installed by covering that one critical step that most people miss. That could honestly be the difference between your studs staying on or coming completely off of the car.
For this example, we'll be doing the front driver's side, but if you prefer to use jack stands and do everything at once, that might save you some time. With the wheel removed, clean off the area with brake clean and a wire brush. This is where I see many people make the big mistake of focusing on the hub and rotor, which is good, but neither of those will benefit our studs. We need to clean the threads with a degreaser and nylon brush. And don't use a metal one as it could damage the threads. Keeping our focus on the threads, rinse the degreaser off with brake clean and run a thread chaser with degreaser again. This will remove any dirt that was left behind and confirm the integrity of your threads. This is the step that I almost never see covered in other tutorials. Sure, some people might call it excessive, but having a clean surface and pristine threads will ensure our Loctite will hold the stud in place. Not doing this could lead to those horror stories of studs coming loose or completely off, which is why places like America's Tire won't work on cars with stud conversion kits. So it's best to be safe and clean the threads thoroughly. Then rinse with brake clean and the nylon brush one more time to remove all the degreaser and let it dry. In the meantime, to prevent the wheels from sticking to the hub, let's place on a small amount of anti-seize in the area. And if a bit gets on the face of the rotor, that's fine, just as long as it's not in the threads. Now clean the short end of the studs, and we'll be using Loctite Red. A small amount of this is enough to spread across the entire area. If you want to ensure full thread saturation, thread on the stud, back it out, and drive it back in. For this, I would recommend doing everything by hand to ensure all the threads are compatible before torquing it down. In the front, you'll need someone to hold the brakes for you, otherwise the assembly will just spin. If you're on your own, you can use a pry bar covered in a towel to hold it into place. Then, with a 5mm, torque to 20 foot-pounds. As the Loctite sets, let's color our titanium nuts. Start by cleaning with a degreaser, then with an alcohol rinse. Once they're fully dry, we'll apply our polish. That will start off white, and as we work it in, it'll turn black. Then wipe off the excess, leaving you with a mirror-like finish. Now we're ready for fire. To hold it steady with mobility, I used a vise and the old bolt from the rear trailing arm. Double check for any leftover polish and fire it up. Pass the torch over quickly until the flashing stops. Then focus on the thicker areas and sections you want further down the color spectrum. Titanium will go from a light gold, bronze, purple, dark blue, then a light blue. If you want to keep going into turquoise, you can, but we'll be stopping at the light blue here. And we're also going for a gradient effect, with the bronze on the top and the light blue at the bottom. The bolt here actually acted as a very good heat sink for the thin bottom section that can be very easy to overheat. So in this case, I really focused on the middle section while still moving the flame to achieve the desired look. Whatever you do, don't hold the flame in one place until you get the color you want. Typically, the titanium will go a little past the color you see when the flame is removed. So concentrated passes are the best approach. Once the top and middle section is where you want, finish off the bottom with quick passes. Then if you have another bolt, move the finish nut off to the side and be very careful and handle it with something like pliers and a metal tray. Now just rinse and repeat, and by the time you're done here, the Loctite should have cured and we can place on our wheel, which you'll notice is much easier. Then once the nuts have cooled, secure your wheel into place. For the first time, run it in by hand or hand tools. Since these are 19 millimeters, not every wheel socket will fit, but a chrome socket should have more than enough clearance for you. As you can see, the ABN socket can go all the way in and fully engage the nut. Gear wrench was a little thicker and could not go all the way in. Wera was actually my favorite design and was the thickest, so unfortunately it didn't make the cut either. Another thing to look for in wheel sockets is the inner sleeve. If you have extended bolts, you'll want a pass-through version versus a capped one. And for frame of reference, these are the 75mm studs with the tuner nuts that give a near flush look without spacers. Now torque to 140 Newton meters and repeat on the other three corners, with the rears being a bit easier because of the handbrake. Just make sure to re-torque everything after a few hundred miles, like after your next gas fill up. And after confirming with MRG, some battery powered impacts like this one are okay for removal. Just don't hammer them in, and always start it by hand. But air impacts are a definite no-go. Now your wheel stud conversion is fully secured, giving you a better experience removing and installing your wheels with a beautiful titanium setup on your BMW.
Whether you decided to go with the steel or the titanium stud kit conversion route, you're gonna have a much more pleasant experience taking off and putting back on your wheels. But since they're off during this process, you might as well do a tire rotation, especially if you're due, for which you can check out the video right over here. And I'll see you in that one.